Warning, you are listening to an adult podcast talking about adult topics. You have definitely been warned.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Hoppy Craftsmen Podcast. I'm Chris Sandback.
Brandon Richardson.
Let's get right into it. On today's episode, we'll be talking about a merger that happened between two local Arizona craft brewers. We'll be reviewing some of their beers. Then later in the show, we'll have a blind taste test of beers that Brandon brought and I brought as well, and do a review on those.
Hey, so did you hear that latest news about Papago selling their naming rights over to Huss Brewery last week?
Over the last year, there's been a lot of mergers. You know, InBev has bought a lot of small breweries. I think they got into the, if we can't beat them kind of game, or we can't dissuade people from not buying their beers and buying ours instead, they're just going to buy up the places again. They use their money, and that's really cool. I think that this is kind of a different situation. This is more of a local company buying another local company, and it's going to be really good for both of them, really, so it's going to come down to.
Yeah, the nice thing is Papago will stay local, even though they really haven't been, their own entity for a while now. They have been, using other breweries locally to brew their beers just because they haven't had the capability of brewing their own in-house. But, previously they were with BJ Brewing to brew their beers, and now, even for about the past year, Huss has been brewing their beers. So it just seemed like a logical fit to have Huss just take over the production and distribution of their beers, and to go along with companies like Huss, who has been just taking over the market here locally over the past year. Like you said, it's just a no-brainer, and this helps keep Papago local. They won't lose their restaurant or their hopefully the rest, their clientele.
Right. I mean, the face of Papago has been there for a long time. I mean, it's been. They were one of the definitely founders of craft beer in the Valley, so I think it's good that they're still going to have a storefront for them to be able to have their beers at.
Yeah.
I mean, and you did bring up a good point. They were with BJ's before that, and then now they're with Huss. Between the two, I haven't really seen a difference between the beers being produced differently. They didn't taste different. They tasted the same. So I think the quality's still going to be there no matter what. Hopefully, maybe a surprise, we'll get some of the beers that they don't make anymore.
Right. Some of their staples that they had been producing for a while there. I know one of my favorites was always the Elsie's Irish coffee beer.
Mine as well. Yeah, mine as well. So
they got away from that for a while. They were making the Coconut Joe just by a popular fan vote, which was not very popular in my books. But yeah, with the production capabilities that they're going to have now with Huss, hopefully, like you said, we'll be seeing a lot more of the local
they'll open
previous
iterations of their beer. Yeah, maybe they'll open up some of the stuff that they weren't the staples that they just wanted, because now they're going to have a full run of Papago's brew recipes. So interesting to see what's going to happen with that.
Definitely, with their location being right there next to that new McFate's that opened up, whatever they need to do to keep them in the market, in craft beer game. This seems like it's going to be a good stepping stone for that, and to keep them local and sticking around for a little bit longer here.
Right, and so we touched on it a little bit. There was we would have the big guy buying stuff up. Recently, Stone kind of actually did that same as well. They created a separate company to buy smaller breweries up so the bigger one can.
Craft First, I believe, right?
Yeah, I guess what it's called. And so I think this is kind of. Is that it's the craft beer industry policing itself almost. It's at the point where it's like, hey, you know what? I'd rather not be bought up by a big guy. So if somebody smaller wants to buy me up, that's a really good idea too. So
right,
again, you said it's going to help the little guy, still going strong, and help them, actually make a lot of stuff. I mean, I would imagine their production rate's going to go way up too, right? They'll actually produce a lot more beers. So maybe we'll see their beers actually go out of state at some point. So, yeah, this is roughly about 9,000 barrels to be able to produce, which will make them the third largest brewer behind, I'm guessing, Santan and Four Peaks, which would be number one locally. Mm-hmm. So, actually be interested to see where Arizona Wilderness falls in that list. I'm missing maybe they're fourth at this point then?
Yeah, I don't know how much, they're actually able to produce. I know they have grown within the last year and expanded their restaurant and brewing capacities. I'm not sure, barrel-wise, how many the barrels they're doing per month or per year per se, but I would assume that they're getting up there. A lot of their beers are, specialty beers and one barrel type beers, and they don't last very long, so they're always producing new stuff. So it's hard to tell what their production rate actually is.
Makes sense. Well, I think now's a good time to enter. We should probably just taste some of their beers.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, we like to, one of our favorite segments is tasting some of the local beers, trying to, just keep it local here for us in Arizona. And with the Papago Huss merger, we decided what better way to kick it off than with tasting the flagships for Papago, at least, with their Orange Blossom, and then one of my favorites is Huss Coffee Kolsch. So we're going to be tasting those here in a second.
Okay, so first up, going to be the Orange Blossom from Papago. Kind of like I said earlier, this is kind of their flagship beer. It's a Mandarin wheat beer. It makes up about 90% of their sales. I will be honest, I've had this forever ago. Yeah. Wasn't the hugest fan of it. I would say
it's back in the days of Blue Moon, when everybody was drinking Blue Moon,
right.
And they're still serving it with fruit, and not the biggest fruit fans, but
very true. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it wouldn't be my go-to. I was going to order from their array of beers, but I would definitely drink this over any other beer.
Yeah.
That's mass-produced.
Yeah. Ever since they've canned it, at least, it's been more of a fan favorite, for me at least, being able to take it out by the pool, take it onto the lake, very drinkable, very smooth. Like you said, it is that Mandarin wheat, and sans the orange. We don't need that to fruiten up our drinks.
Right,
anymore.
you need to put more fruit into the beer. Right? That's one of the things. Is I always think that if you have to add something to the beer that the brewer didn't want to add to the beer, you're kind of doing a disservice to them.
Right. Putting a lime in your Corona. Well, number one, it was Corona.
Right.
Number two, if you need the lime to help make it don't go down any better, then it's probably something wrong there. But yeah, it's a very smooth beer. We got the can here. It's a 5%, which is probably pretty high for most Mandarin wheats. I'm not familiar off the top of my head of what Blue Moon there is, but
probably not 5%.
It's also not Coors beer either.
I think this. It's funny. Like, I don't know if it's just because I haven't had it a long time or whatever. But it actually, I taste the Mandarin, but I also taste kind of vanilla flavoring to it too as well, which is kind of weird. I never. Like I said, maybe it's just been a while since I had it.
Right.
But I definitely taste some vanilla, which is kind of nice. So and definitely here in Arizona, nice, refreshing, easy to drink beer. It's going to be
on a hot summer day.
Yeah, it's going to be great for us. So, and we have a lot of those.
Yes,
so.
Indeed. Well, bottoms up.
Cheers.
All right, and next up on the second half of that merger there between Papago is Huss, and we are trying the Coffee Kolsch from Huss. Actually, really interesting beer because it's so light, Kolsch style. You think kind of like more of a pale ale. Also, really smooth and really bold coffee flavor out of it. It's
especially the aroma. It's really, you smell it. You can smell the coffee just coming off of it, which is great. It's funny. It's definitely kind of like that incognito kind of style of beer, where the Stone had a couple, and was it Pipeline or Maui?
Maui has their
Doppelbock.
Doppelbock double shot.
So, this is kind of along those lines for me, at least with that. Is that it's definitely one of those beers. If you saw it, you wouldn't think as a coffee anything beer.
Well, being so light in color, I think coffee. I think porters and stouts.
Right.
Being an ale, a light Kolsch style ale that is also very bold in coffee flavor is just it almost seems like an oxymoron anymore.
Right.
But at the same time, they're becoming so regular that it's like I said, they're smooth and refreshing.
Right, and it's cool to see somebody taking a trend, definitely a trend that's happening right now with coffee, coffee and oak age stuff and bourbon barrel, those kind of things, kind of turning on its head and saying, hey, let's move away from stouts and porters like you would think normally. Right. Let's try something different. Let's try that Clouch, and that's actually really cool. Funny story about this beer. The first time I ever had it, I was actually at a local place here. A guy next to me was like, "You need to try this beer," and he kept talking to me and talking to me and talking to me and talking to me. And I finally was like, "Fine, I will try the beer." And I tried it and I loved it. So then it was like, "Oh, thanks, man." So I felt I almost didn't want to like it just because he was there and he was like
push it on you so hard.
Yeah, but he was so hard to bring it. But I ended up liking it. And
you would have felt like you missed out having not tried it.
Right? Yeah. At this point, I'm like, I'm glad I wasn't a jerk to that guy and actually tried the beer he was suggesting me to try.
Exactly.
So
and good stuff. Just for a side note, you'll see all these beers through our Instagram and our blog posts as well.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, so we're kind of our second thing we want to do thought would be kind of fun is to do kind of a blind taster. The idea is to at some point mix up and have different beers and have kind of a theme maybe. And
I'm nervous.
Nice. So we kind of do a blind tasting. Brandon doesn't know the beer that I chose, and I don't know the beer he's chose. And then what we want to do is we kind of have a reaction to what the beer is, and then we'll talk about the beer after that.
I have a very dark, stout beer sitting in front of me that I have no idea what it is, and that's a great thing.
It is. It's going to be great. Truth be told, I have not had this beer either. I saw it, somebody posted on Instagram, and I've had some of their other beers before, or not other beers, but other beer. So I was really interested in this, and so I wanted to share that with you.
I did have a sneak peek at the bottle cap, and I do know that it is an Iron Fist beer. That's about all I know about it, so I have no idea what it is from Iron Fist or the ABV or what we're in for. So I'm going to take my first sip here, and Chris is going to do the same, and we're going to go from there and see what happens. And that is a very stout beer. It almost has a bit of a mint flavor, I feel like, to it. But
does it have a mint taste? That's weird.
A very chocolate nose to it as well.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. That's very upfront, not mint at all. Aftertaste, very big mint flavor to it, which is great.
Yeah.
A little bit of coffee in there, a little bit, which is nice.
Right, the chocolate notes probably add to that a little bit.
Yeah, that is
wow. It's smooth though.
You can smell the mint. You can actually smell it really well as well. I imagine this would be really good once it warms up. It's probably gonna be amazing.
I had to throw it in the freezer a little bit just to cool it down because it had been sitting on the shelf, I guess, when Sir Sandback purchased it from our local bottle shop.
So now for the reveal.
We have a brown bag sitting in front of us with the bottle I have not been privy to.
Yes. I'll pull it out here.
The Ken Schmidt.
Ken Schmidt brews, Aloha Brews. It's a chocolate mint stout. Weird, right?
Well, spot on.
So spot on. It is 9.2% ABV.
All right.
But yeah, this is really good.
It tastes all of the 9 point.
I mean, even from the description on the back, it's literally supposed to taste kind of like a thin mint. It's a Russian Imperial Stout with a twist. It's basically got chocolate, cocoa, coffee, fruits, and multi-grains. But yeah, so I mean, this is, we kind of hit all those points, which is great. So I mean, this is
nailed it,
phenomenal. So, and it's funny, I didn't know who Ken Schmidt was.
I don't know who Ken Schmidt is.
Right. So I actually
Googled it.
I had another beer that he made previously, this one, and it was actually kind of a Kona coffee nut porter, which I was like, oh, that's really interesting because there was a beer a while ago that Stone made. It was a collab, and it was actually a Kona coffee macadamia nut coconut porter.
And you never got.
Then I actually looked up who Ken Schmidt was, and Ken Schmidt is actually a homebrew champion that did a collab with Stone, which would be that collab. And then they actually did a mint chocolate imperial stout with them as well. So it's like, oh, all the worlds collide. And
the trifecta.
It makes perfect sense. So overall, I like this beer. This is really good. I mean, 9%, it hides it well.
Yes. It is all the 9%, but it is a very smooth beer. Nailed it right off the bat from the blind taste test. The mint came through right up front, but it's not an overpowering mint. There were several brews last season that boasted their peppermint right around Christmas time that were just
right up front,
god
in your face.
awful peppermint taste to it that just detracted from the quality of the beer.
It's like somebody took peppermint extract and just poured it into your beer and then gave it to you.
But
that's not this at all.
This one with the mints, and the chocolate, like you said, like a thin mint, just melts in your mouth almost, which is the way a beer should be. Smooth on the palate, not a lingering aftertaste. It's quite the collaboration there of two flavors.
So yeah, great that it's actually from Iron Fist Brewing too, which is, that's kind of really crazy that, it says a lot to Ken Schmidt and the home brewer that he is, and that he actually at this point is collab with multiple brewers and made beers as well. So super cool. Glad I tried it. This has been awesome.
Absolutely. Great job.
Like the previous, a very dark beer. So I'm guessing it's not an IPA.
This is not an IPA.
Or a Hefeweizen. This isn't a Hefeweizen.
I suppose it could have been a black IPA, but this is not it
That's
does
true.
have a foamy
True.
head to it, so it's definitely not a black IPA. So this is a darker variety. So we each picked darker, stout-ier type beers this evening,
Which is kind of
for
funny.
our blind taste test. So I've been looking forward to trying this one ever since the original came out this last year. This is version 2.0, let's say. So go ahead.
So I was going to say, it's actually kind of interesting they both picked a stout. So I wonder if it's that this time of year that we're kind of getting into, the traditionally a cooler season.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're done with the summer beers and we kind of want something, a little more malty, a little bit more, wintry.
Even though it's still 100 degrees outside.
True.
Seasonally, yes, it is turning into fall for most places, and the
Right.
darker style lagers are definitely making their reappearances, I should say, as opposed to those lighter ales and IPAs.
Right. So
So, Chris, if you would please take a whiff or a gander or a...
no, I don't want to smell it. I don't want to be...
You just want to...
I'm just going to try it.
Taste
and
it
then,
and
I'll
go
just go
for it.
right for it. And then...
So, bottoms up. Oh, that is... it's smooth.
That is really good, yeah.
Picking up on anything there?
Kind of tastes like the... a little bit of curry. The Indra... No?
Well, you are
In the right family?
In the right family.
Okay.
Yes, it is that brewery
Okay.
that you are referring to. The
Yeah.
Indra Conundra is one of this brew's brothers,
Okay.
per
Okay.
se.
So, yeah,
it is
okay.
not the Indra Conundra.
Okay. I love that beer.
It might be the spicy fried rice you just had that might be throwing off your senses a little bit, your palate.
It could be that, yeah, they still on overload from that. No, that's...
Do you pick up any cinnamon taste?
Maybe. I mean, I can definitely taste spices.
Right.
And so that's why I went through with the curry, so...
Sure. Yeah.
No, I mean,
Well,
not a ton.
this is, for the reveal, Ballast Point's Cinnamon Raisin Commodore.
Oh, okay.
So
Nice, yeah,
they released their Commodore series last year,
Yeah.
and this is the cinnamon raisin version of it.
Oh, that's...
And so, like I said, our palates may be a little off because we just did have a little spicy food, but there is a definite raisin smell bouquet to the beer itself that I got when I was at least pouring it and hiding it from my counterpart over here. But a nice little cinnamon taste bud rolling off your tongue as well.
Yeah, that's it's very interesting. I definitely smell the spices in there.
Yes.
But yeah, that is a definitely... It's funny. It almost reminds me of like how Wilderness will just take something that's a baked good and throw it into a beer and
Right.
make a beer out of it. So, I mean, this cinnamon raisin reminds me, it's like, we took a cinnamon raisin...
Cinnabon.
Yeah, Cinnabon. And we just slap into a beer. It's like the brewers at some airport and they smell Cinnabon and they're like, I got a great idea. Let's make a beer with cinnamon raisin.
Somebody's walking through the mall getting their Orange Julius and it's like, oh, hey, you know what would taste great in my stout right now would be
Yeah, you'd be amazing.
a cinnamon raisin.
A cinnamon raisin bun. I mean, it makes sense. The bready, the cinnamon. I mean, the spices. So
Yeah, and the
pretty
allspice, the like you said, it's
Right.
coming up on fall. It would go great as a dessert beer
Right.
after Thanksgiving when you're eating your apple pie.
Very true.
Nice, delightful, refreshing cinnamon bouquet.
We'll say this: Ballast Point has some of the best graphics on their bottles.
Oh, okay.
It is pretty amazing what they do. I'm not sure.
The artist that they have on commission.
Yeah, I don't know if it's it doesn't say on here. I don't think anywhere who that is, but he does really cool stuff. Hats off to whoever that is.
This one does have the Commodore's jacket on, even though it is a skeleton holding his sword and a pipe, just in the middle of the ocean on his ship.
Amazing.
Yeah, they do have quite the artist, like I said, on commission there that always knocks it out of the park with their labels.
Would you drink a lot of this? Would you drink
Would I drink a lot of this particular beer? Or?
Yeah, I mean, this being sit down and drink like a whole 6-pack of this in one evening, or is this something?
Well, I mean, I have a whole 6-pack of this
I
because it came in a
understand.
6-pack. But I mean, yeah, it would probably last me a few weeks. It would not be something I would sit and drink multiple in during a session or anything. It might just be because it is still hot outside currently for us here that, I'm not leaning towards darker beer per se, be more inclined to maybe drink a couple later in the season when it does get colder out. I mean, it is a very drinkable beer. This won't be my last 6-pack.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's not that we wouldn't drink that. It seems like even up front, without being a warm, it's very potent.
Sure.
It has a lot of the spice definitely comes through right off the bat.
I think that's just Ballast Point in general, though, with a lot of their beers. So you almost have to go into it, if you know what you're getting into, as opposed to a blind taste test. With Ballast Point, though, you know what you're kind of getting into with their beers, being the Sculpin IPA, being the Indra Conundra, the curry-style beer, or the Habanero Sculpin. You're getting a very bold, upfront taste.
Right.
But it might be, something that is very smooth, like a cinnamon stout. Cinnamon raisin stout for that matter, but you almost you know what you're expecting when it is Ballast Point when you buy their product, and so you have to almost be in the mindset sort of to drink their beer, but it is a very drinkable beer all in general.
Very nice.
So, all right, cheers.
Cheers.
All right, well that about wraps it up for this show. I just wanted to give a shout out to Huss and Papago, for their merger. Obviously, the tasting of the beer we did this week, as well as Iron Fist and Ballast Point. Next week we'll hopefully have some other good beers to try.
Oh, and homebrewer Ken Schmidt. Can't forget about that guy. He's amazing, and his beers. For the reviews of our beers or in-depth stuff, check out our WordPress site at hoppycraftsmen.wordpress.com. There you'll find links to our Facebook, Instagram. If you want to follow us on Untapped, we are there as well. So, till next week, cheers.
I am Brandon.
I am Chris.
See ya.
Bye now.